From the Arizona Daily Star and Tucson.com, this is the Wildcast.
What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Wildcast podcast. Justin Spears here with Arizona football insider Michael Lev and sports editor of the Arizona Daily Star, Ryan Finley. We'll do our Pac-12 picks later on in this episode. And look at that. Ryan and I, we had a bad week, but your bad week was better than mine, Ryan. You've leapfrogged me in the against the spread standings.
That's good. Yes, I have leapfrogged you, which is nice. But man, that's as bad a picking weekend as I've ever had in college football. I mean, everything I touched turned to total crap.
I love how it's like not newsworthy at all that I had a bad week. Like that's just like every week, you know? Doesn't even merit a mention.
What we expect from Michael Lev.
Right. Ironically, the thing that helped me jump you was we disagreed on who would be covering in the Arizona game. I thought 13 and a half or 13 was a pretty small number, and as it turns out, it was. That was, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But Oregon basically was able to do whatever they wanted to do last week against Arizona's defense.
Before we dive into the first half assessment of Arizona's season so far, just want to remind people to subscribe, rate, and comment the Wildcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and don't forget to download that Wildcast app for free off the App Store and Google Play. All right, guys, so Arizona 3-3 going into the second half of the season. It's about maybe what you expected. Hey, some people maybe even a little bit better.
I'd say better.
Yeah. And so I know, like, a lot of people, we scrolling through Twitter, social media, a lot of people were kind of frustrated with the fact that the program really sold going to the Oregon game, selling it out, and then they kind of put up this kind of performance. But isn't this what you expected? Like, Arizona's going to beat Colorado. They're going to be competitive against Cal. They're probably going to beat ASU. But, I mean, heck, ASU just beat Washington. And we'll talk more about, the Huskies coming up here in just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, they're competing in games that they should be competitive in. Yeah. And they're losing by a large margin to Mississippi State and Oregon, teams that we all thought they'd get thumped by. So I think that this team kind of is who we thought they were, maybe a little bit better. And I think a big reason why they've been able to kind of look so exciting is because of all the things that they added to the offense with Jaden DeLora, T-Mac, Jacob Cowing, but the defensive side of the ball. Right. And I think this is really a reflection on this past recruiting class. And if you look at 2023, reinforcements are on the way. I mean, most of Arizona's 23 class are all defensive players. So defense is not going to get fixed overnight. This is a project that's going to take a couple of years. Right.
And yeah, good thing reinforcements are on the way because they need them. They need them now, to be honest with you. And obviously the big news early this week is that Jacob Manu is your new starting linebacker, correct?
Yes.
This is a guy who, I think is a gamer and is somebody who will make great plays during his career at Arizona. He is a true freshman, and he is as undersized a linebacker as Arizona has ever played.
Yeah.
That is where we're at right now, right? Is Jacob Manu a guy, they're willing to sacrifice the fact that he's not a very big person for the fact that he has a pretty good nose for the ball. And I think that shows you maybe what their lack of depth is, especially at linebacker. This is where we are at this point in the season. I don't know. I'm reminded of something Andy Lopez said, and it's now taken me like 4 minutes to name drop Andy Lopez.
This game is played by young people?
No, well, yes, there's that. But he always talked about one eye being a microscope and one eye being a telescope. Okay. One eye looks at kind of the big picture, and then the other one looks at the granular stuff. If you're looking at the first 6 weeks of this season as a telescope so far, Arizona's doing great. I think they probably have one more win than your average fan would have thought. They've exceeded Las Vegas's over-under wins, which was 2.5. They already have 3. They're competitive in almost every game, and they play for their coach. If you want to look at it under a microscope, however, the cracks are starting to form on this defense. And, I think that is a reason to be concerned as Arizona continues through this gauntlet of their schedule. You wonder how much longer the defense can hold. And we're going to find out here on Saturday against Washington.
If you were able to get in at that 2.5 number, you have cashed your ticket. You've won already.
Yep.
Halfway through the season, I was just looking to see if indeed that 2.5 number held. It seemed like it went up to 3 in some places. So some people, if they made that a wager, they're kind of holding their breath right now, hoping that there's a win somewhere in the second half of the schedule. And I mean, it looks rough on paper, but I mean, come on. There's got to be a couple wins out there, right? This is for the Pac-12. I know it's been sort of a resurgent year, but I feel like almost every team has some vulnerability. And we'll get to our picks later and kind of examine that a little bit closer. The defense is a cause for concern, no question about it. When you can't stop the run, it's kind of hard to stop anything, and it's hard to win games. I will be interested to see how some of the personnel changes impact things. You mentioned Jacob Manu. It looks like DJ Warnell is going to enter the starting lineup as well. I think they definitely need better play from that star defensive back position. I'm looking for the defensive linemen to show up a little bit more here. You know, there were some guys coming into the year like Keon Bars, Jalen Harris, Paris Shand. I mean, these are veteran players who've had production in the past. They've flashed at times this season, but those guys need to start being more disruptive up front to make things easier on everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough when the hole is formed cleanly and the running back is coming through the line. That's tough on any linebacker to make that play.
And we talk about sort of the lack of physical development among the linebackers, starting with Jacob Manu, right? I mean, what is he listed at, guys?
Oh, he's listed at 5'11" and 220, I believe.
What would we guess?
5'8".
And
210?
5'9", yeah.
210. So, you know, we talk about the lack of physical maturity at the linebacker spot. Like Michael said, I think that there really is physical maturity on the defensive line. You know, Jalen Harris is a grown man. You know, Jalen Harris is huge.
60-year guy.
Yeah, 6-year guy. Looks great coming off the bus. Looks great in a uniform. You know, there's no physical reason why these guys can't be playing better than they are.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you had to play Oregon's offensive line last weekend. That's not good. Washington, USC, you know, it's going to be a slog here for the next couple of weeks, but there's no reason to believe that this group can't compete physically with the guys who they're going up against. Linebacker is a different deal.
Yeah. You know? Well, I think that Johnny Nansen, first-year defensive coordinator, you also have to give him some benefit of the doubt, too, because this is the first year he's been able to control a defense as head honcho. So he's going through some growing pains, too. But I also think it's worth noting that the coaching staff, they're willing to make a change right now because what's the old saying? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So just keeping those guys out there, the same lineup, is not going to do any good, especially like you said, the month of schedule they have coming up here. I think making a change at linebacker, Colby Cage, again, converting from safety to linebacker is very hard. Mm-hmm. He shined at some points, but obviously struggled, especially tackling and holding on to guys. So they had to make a change there because Jacob Manu, while he is undersized, he's kind of like a pit bull, and he's smart and willing to make those plays. And you know, at Anaheim Servite, he was their captain. Mm-hmm. He was the guy that I believe led the hut drill after the game. Right. So he was, a player that Arizona loved to bring in because of his leadership, even though he's undersized. So I think that he's going to make an impact in some ways at that linebacker spot, but I agree with you, Ryan. I think that the fact that little 5'8" Jacob Manu is starting as a true freshman really shows where Arizona's lacking. I
mean, this is a guy, and again, I think that what he meant to his high school team, I think Arizona was really smart to lock him up and to bring him in.
Yeah.
But this was not a guy who was dripping with Division I offers either, right? I mean, this isn't the same as starting Tetaroa McMillan as a true freshman.
Yeah.
Right? Linebacker is a tough position to learn. This is a guy who is undersized. And not to pick on him. I mean, it's an accomplishment to start as a true freshman, but I think that it shows you what their depth looks like at this point, and that this is a team that, again, they're going to have to improve on defense if they're going to try to steal a win in the last 6 games of the season.
It wasn't supposed to be this way. They brought in Malik Reed in the transfer portal 2 years ago,
in Wisconsin,
and they brought in Anthony Solomon in the transfer portal this past year. They're both weak side linebackers who are supposed to be able to play that position, and they just haven't produced enough or been consistent enough to earn the coach's trust to be put out there on the field. I mean, Malik Reed hasn't played at all, defense or special teams. Anthony Solomon has only played special teams.
That's incredible.
And that's a disappointing development.
Yeah.
To say the least. When you look at UCLA and the success that they're having, they have just an unbelievably good hit ratio on the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's like Chip Kelly's NFL background evaluating free agents or whatever, but it seems like they're almost at 100%. Mm-hmm. And every guy they brought in is a major contributor in their resurgence.
Not to digress, but is that the recipe to success for UCLA in the Chip Kelly era? Because he's not a flashy recruiter, not going to go on the recruiting trail.
It's definitely their strategy. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. If you look at how many commits they have, high school commits for 2023, they're down at ASU levels, and they just lost one, a big one, to Georgia. That's the route they're going. Some schools are doing that, and they're having success with it. I think Ole Miss is another one that's really going heavily into the portal. And, it's to me, like, I view high school recruiting is the draft and the portal is free agency, and you should build through the draft. You should build through traditional recruiting. Arizona definitely seems like they're going that route because I think there's an acknowledgement that Arizona is a quote-unquote developmental program, right? You're mostly going to get 3-star players, but if you get the right guys with traits who have upside, you can develop them into 4- and 5-star caliber players over the course of time.
Well, and maybe it's because I have playoff baseball in the brain, fellas, but it's a lot like baseball, right? You draft 30 guys a year in baseball. The high school or college signing classes are 25, right? You hope you lose half of them to, the fact they're just not good enough, and you hope that there are some dudes in that group. And, when you can hit on even half of them, you're a superstar, right? Arizona's not there yet. And, again, to build a program, sort of to tear everything down to the studs and build it up is going to take more than a year and a half, guys. Yeah. Like, I'm not sure where this frustration, and maybe it lives on Twitter with fans who have unrealistic expectations. I don't know who could possibly be frustrated with this team at this point.
But I also think it's also a big credit to the coaching staff that they've turned the program around so quickly that all of a sudden expectations just drastically changed.
Well, I think people see what the offense is doing, right?
Yeah.
And again, Jed Fish is what? Oh, a quarterback's coach, right? It's easy to sell opportunity at quarterback and at receiver. It's a little bit harder to say, hey, come in here, come sign with us. You're going to go, 4-8 this year, 5-7 next year. And by the way, you're going to play linebacker or you're going to play safety, right? Selling opportunity on defense is, I think, a little bit tougher. But, I think it's a credit to how far they've come that people now wonder why they're not better. Yeah. My goodness, this was the worst program in America for about 4 years. And, now they're respectable again.
You can sell opportunity on defense right now.
Yeah.
All you got to do is roll the tape, send them the stats, look at the results.
Well, right.
There are opportunities to come in and play, and they're going to lose a lot of guys too. They could lose Christian Roland Wallace if he decides to go pro. Christian Young, his eligibility will be up. Jerry Roberts' eligibility is up. Hunter Echols' eligibility is up. Jalen Harris. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities, a lot of change on that side of the ball this upcoming offseason.
They should just do what UCLA does. Go sign a bunch of twins to play on defense. You ever seen twinnier looking guys than those dudes at UCLA?
I mean, I've seen Ryan and Patrick Finley.
Man. They were both, somebody got flagged for something on Saturday.
And then the brother got flagged right after for complaining.
And they showed him on the sidelines, and they're like, body language was exactly the same. And like Chip Kelly was like right in between them. I was watching on TV. I went, man, those are some identical twins right there.
Even more twinsier than the Morris twins, who have identical tattoos
and share a bank account. That's a podcast for another day, boys. Podcast for another day. Share a bank account. Anyway,
identical tattoos. They're tatted up.
I know.
From head to toe.
I know.
No,
we're not talking
the same exact tattoo.
We're not talking 3 tattoos either. We're talking 25.
Yeah. Same tattoos, the same bank account. I love it. All right, real quick before we go to Pac-12 picks, this is a big game in a lot of ways. One, it's like a mega sports weekend in Seattle. You got playoff baseball. You got the Seahawks against the Cardinals. The Kraken are at home against the Golden Knights on Saturday as well. But this is also I wouldn't say Jaden Delora revenge game because he had won in the Apple Cup. and grabbed the Wazoo flag and planted it right in the middle of Husky Stadium. Now, the Washington players were actually asked this earlier this week, and they didn't forget about it. They have it in the back of their mind. They know that when they're playing against a guy like Jayden de Laura. And they were kind of like upset. They were like, why are you planting a flag against a 4-8 football team? It's like, well, Washington has dominated Wazoo in the Apple Cup. Like, this was a personal rivalry game for Jayden and the Cougars. But yeah, nice little twist to this game here. Jayden de Laura, I know he's not with Wazoo anymore, but they're going to be going after him on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, ask Baker Mayfield. You don't need to plant a flag against good teams only. It seems like Baker Mayfield did that all the time in college against like everybody. I don't know, man. It's hard to knock a kid for getting excited after you win a rivalry game. I think that this is a little bit of a media invention. You're looking for a storyline against an Arizona team that's not playing particularly well and doesn't have a ton of superstars. But you know what? Hey, if this motivates Jayden de Laura to play 20% better, maybe Arizona has a shot.
As a member of the media who's on the lookout for storylines, I'm definitely going to include this one in the batch this week. Some interesting quotes from some of the Husky players about this. I mean, this is defensive back Alex Cook talking about this specific thing. I'm not going to take that lightly. I don't think anybody else on the team is going to take that lightly. I'm not talking about dirty shots or anything like that. I'm talking about there's going to be a different vibe and different intensity coming on Saturday.
I'm not talking dirty shots, which means
I'm talking dirty shots.
There's going to be one dirty shot when the camera's not watching.
Nothing personal, no disrespect, but. Yeah. So just a little undercurrent to the game, little something to keep an eye on if there's some sort of. I'm sure there will be trash talk. Going back and forth without question. But when it comes to Jayden de Laura, he needs to play under control and without a lot of emotion, because I feel like sometimes he lets the circumstances of the game get the best of him and starts to press a little bit. And he just needs to kind of stay steady, even keel, one play after the next, just execute the plays. When he does that, he's pretty darn effective.
Right. I don't know if you guys saw, but Ched Fish was mic'd up for the Oregon game. And, if you watch that clip, he's walking up and down the sidelines. And the stuff he says to de Laura is exactly that, which is, I don't need you. I just need you to be the best version of you. Right? I just need you to do your job. Don't worry about all this other stuff. I think that that's a good mantra for de Laura at this point. When he tries to play bigger than himself, he plays terribly.
Yeah.
When he stays within himself, starting with their season opener at San Diego State, he's among the best quarterbacks in the league. And, it's almost like there's sort of this angel and devil on his shoulder, right? The one that says, "Nah, man, chuck it deep," versus the one that says, "Hit the open man."
Yeah.
And, again, as these defenses, Washington's defense is very good. USC's defense is going to be really good. As they play these better defenses, these guys are going to pounce on his every mistake. So he's going to have to play clean.
How about over-unders for this game, starting with Jayden de Laura, passing touchdowns? I'm going to set it at lower. I'm going to lower last word. What was it? I put it at 4.5 last week. I'm going to make it lower this week.
Oh, good.
I'm going to do 2.5 over-under for passing touchdowns for Mr. de Laura.
I'm going to go over. I think Washington's had all sorts of trouble in their secondary, a bunch of injuries. They've had a lot of guys go to the NFL in recent seasons. They've struggled against the pass. I think it's going to be a shootout type of game, and I think that Arizona's best chance to move the ball is through the air. I think de Laura can hit 3 or maybe even 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'll side with Michael Lev on this one. I think that, if Arizona's path to victory or path to being competitive is getting into a shootout. And maybe it's just because I'd like to see a shootout, but I'll take the over.
I'm going to go with the over 2, but just barely. I'm going to go with 3 touchdowns for Mr. de Laura. All right, how about passing touchdowns from Washington quarterback Michael Penix? I'm going to put it at 3.5. I'm going to give Mr. Penix one more touchdown. Over under 3.5.
I'm going to go under on that one because I think Washington will have looked at Arizona's defense and recognized, hey, we can run the ball against this team. I think that's been a pretty common for them inside the red zone too, to turn to the run game. So I could see Penix throwing 2 or 3 touchdown passes, but I can also see running backs scoring 2 or 3 touchdowns. So I'll take the under on that one.
Yeah, I will also take the under, but I'll take it for this reason. I think Penix is going to run one in himself. This guy's a tremendous athlete. Justin, we've talked about him, I think, off the air. He's somebody who, when he's healthy, is a superstar. And so, yeah, I think his athleticism is going to get him in the end zone with a rushing touchdown. So I'll take the under.
All right, so this week is probably going to be a big week for transfer running back DJ Williams, who had a 55-yard touchdown run last week against Oregon, the longest run of his career since his freshman year when he had 130 yards against LSU at Auburn. Now, we don't know the status of Michael Wiley yet. Of course, we still need to talk to Jed Fish during Thursday's press conference, but big week for DJ Williams, could be taking a lot of the carries. I'm going to put his over-under of total yards at 60.5. Over-under.
I'm going to take the over on that one. I liked what I've seen from DJ Williams lately. Seems to be in great shape. Remember, he got here in late July. Had to do a lot of schoolwork in order to graduate and be able to come over here and be eligible right away. Got that done, but he was behind at the beginning of camp, and he was struggling with cramps and had to be taken out of practice a couple times. He looks great. I mean, he looks fast. He's decisive. He trucked a guy on a run up the middle last week that didn't get as much attention as his long touchdown run. But I like what I've seen from DJ. I don't think Wiley's going to play Saturday. That's my guess at this point. So given that fact, DJ kind of becoming the guy, I think he can hit the over on that one.
Yeah, I'll take the under just because Arizona has so many different guys. Even if Wiley's out, there are going to be a handful of different options here that you could use. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jed Fish dusted off somebody who we haven't seen much of this year just to give Arizona a different look. So I'll take the under.
Every time I feel like they're going to do that, like Drake Anderson, where was he? I mean, he was one of their go-to scat backs last year and completely disappeared. And with the loss of Rayshon Speedy Luke and a banged up Michael Wiley, you'd think that Drake Anderson is going to get in the game. But how about
CDO? How about Stevie Rocker?
Stevie Rocker.
How about Steve? Remember him?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy who hasn't played much this year either.
And he was started at a lot of places too.
I know.
He's a really good running back. But I'll take the over for Mr. Williams on Saturday.
So according to Pro Football Focus, as well as Arizona's participation chart, Drake Anderson did get in the game this last week. I watched the game twice.
Huh?
I watched the game twice. I watched it, live, and then I also watched it on TV the next day. And I don't recall seeing Drake Anderson out there, but I've been told that he did play, and he would definitely be the third guy with DJ and Jonah Coleman. And Drake has plenty of experience. He's had some good moments here at Arizona. I don't think there'd be any hesitation to put him out there in a key situation.
Sure. I mean, he went to the Alabama of the North before transferring to Arizona.
Wow. How dare you?
Alabama in the North. All right, let's go into Pac-12 picks for the week.
Let's see. It's funny because Michael Lev went to Northwestern. So did Drake Anderson. Anyway.
So did Mike Greenberg.
How could someone so smart as me who went to Northwestern be so bad at picking football games? That's the question.
All right, so Pac-12 pick'ems. Ryan is now numero uno when it comes to against the spread. What's your record straight up, Ryan?
Oh my goodness!
Isn't it 23-10?
I'm 23-10 and 19-14 against the spread.
Okay, so I am 26-7 overall, 18-15 against the spread.
Yeah. Okay.
Lev,
24-9 straight up. That's pretty good, right? 13-20 against the spread.
Yeesh.
So hey, second half of the season, it's just setting things up for a big turnaround here.
Well, this feels like a gimme game.
I'm on the comeback trail already.
Is this a gimme game at 11 a.m.? Cal versus Colorado. The Golden Bears are 14.5-point favorites in Boulder. Now, it's a lot of points, but Colorado is bad. They're the only winless FBS team in college football right now. They are bad.
I would take Colorado at twice that. I would. If you said 28 or 29, I think I'd take Colorado there too. The only caveat is weird stuff happens under interim coaches, right? It's the Tim Kish UCLA rule, right? Players usually get up. They usually make one big surge under the new guy. Does that happen Saturday in what might be their most winnable game left on the schedule? Maybe. But I will take Cal and the points.
Yeah, I'm going with Cal and the points as well. Give me the Golden Bears to cover.
Okay, I'm going to go the other way here. I think Cal is going to win the game, but I think it's going to be close. I think Colorado, they've had a whole bye week here with a new coach to maybe come up with some new stuff. I actually like their quarterback, Owen McCown. I think he's got some stuff. I know that roster is threadbare. But hey, we've seen Cal in this kind of scenario before last year. I'm sure that'll be motivation for them to avoid that situation, but I will take Cal to win, but I'll take Colorado with those points.
As a quick aside, our colleague and contributor, John Wilner, had a great story that posted to the Wildcaster yesterday about the candidates to take over the Colorado job. It's interesting.
Brent,
our old friend, Brent Brennan, Bizarro World Arizona football coach, Brent Brennan, they're great. I don't know. They are. I watched them play last week against UNLV. San Jose State is not good. They're great under him.
Isn't that what you expect out of San Jose State, though?
No. I mean,
well, you said they're good, not great. Sorry.
No. They're great. No. They're great. They're great. No, I don't expect that out of San Jose State. Brent Brennan's the only guy in 30 years to have made them even remotely relevant. I mean, what he is doing there is incredible. To me, the question is, does he jump for something like the Colorado job now, or does he wait 18 months and take the job at UCLA? Because he's a UCLA grad.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I thought Chip Kelly was a goner for sure. But
I know.
Maybe the transfer portal is his niche.
Maybe.
And kind of like UNLV basketball there for a little bit.
Sure. And you never know. I mean, Chip Kelly could leave for a better job too, right? But, he's a UCLA grad, somebody who's very connected within the West Coast. If you're talking about just good coaches, he might be as good as they can do. Anyway, I urge everybody to read what John Wilner has on the Wildcast, on the Wildcaster app, he names about 30 guys who would be good fits there, including old friend Ryan Walters, who's the defensive coordinator at Illinois and was a defensive back and a DB's coach at Colorado.
Is Marcel Yates on that list?
He is not.
Okay. With all due respect to Marcel Yates, that was just a wild time in 2018 during that whole coaching search. But all right, who's more likely to coach in the Pac-12 in 2023, Brent Brennan or David Shaw? Now, this is a segue. This is a segue into our next game, the Stanford Cardinal visiting the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and I mean, I feel like Michael Lev is kind of like the godfather here when it comes to Stanford. It's like anytime they push me out, they find a way to pull me back in. Stanford, I mean, we've been talking about how bad they were, and they kind of took it to Oregon State last week. Until they did it.
The last play.
Until a guy stole a ball from somebody and ran alone down the sidelines.
Oh, my gosh. What a Pac-12 after dark moment.
Stephon Diggs wants his move back.
So this is a 17-point spread.
Well, Notre Dame quietly is kind of getting its groove back a little bit here, right? It was very bad start to the season. When you lose to Marshall at home, I mean, that's sort of hard to recover from. But they beat Notre Dame. I mean, they beat BYU last week, and they didn't just beat BYU. They gashed BYU. The yardage in that game was 496 to 276. Wow. So I feel like physically they're kind of getting their groove back here. It feels like a lot of points for a Notre Dame team that lost at home against Marshall. I'm still going to take Notre Dame. I'm going to take Notre Dame, and I'm going to lay all those points. And may live to regret it, but that's where we're going.
I'll go. It's too many points for me. Sort of my early logic was Stanford is a poor man's BYU, and Notre Dame killed BYU, so Notre Dame should double kill Stanford. But I think 17's a lot. I'm not sure Notre Dame could put up, say, 31 or 35 points in this game, because I think Stanford will probably score at some point. Right? It's a college football team.
Yeah.
Probably. So give me Stanford to cover, but Notre Dame to win.
So you say they should score, right? They're a college football team.
This strikes me as a 28-14 kind of game.
And this is a rivalry game, and you think I use rivalry loosely. They play each other annually.
They play each other a lot. Yeah.
And I said that in these kind of games, there's no way that a team could go scoreless and just get absolutely smacked. Mm-hmm. And then I watched the Red River rivalry last week and watched Texas just beat the pants off Oklahoma. This is not Colgate from the earlier in the season. This is a Notre Dame team, like Lev said, has found its rhythm over the last few weeks. So I'm going to go with the Fighting Irish to win and win by a few touchdowns, giving them to cover as well. All right, our next game on the schedule is probably the best matchup in the Pac-12 South, or formerly known as the Pac-12 South, USC versus Utah in Salt Lake City, and the Utes are 3.5-point favorites. So even the almighty Trojans, undefeated in the first year under Lincoln Riley, they're dogs going into this game. I don't know, man. This feels like a game that Utah can win and kind of dethrone USC for the moment. But I don't know, man. I'm not going to go with the upset special, or I guess if USC won, they'd be the winners of the upset. But I'm going to go with the Trojans to win a tough game on the road in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, agree completely. Anybody who watched UCLA, Utah last week, I think UCLA figured something out about Utah. This was not a team that, really, it was as uncharacteristic a performance as I can remember from them. I'm just not sure Utah has the horses, and I know USC is going to score some points. So give me USC to win, just win the game outright and cover, obviously.
Yeah, Utah didn't look good last week,
Nope.
Especially on defense. They're not as good on that side of the ball as they have been in recent years. That being said, they're back at home. The two losses that they've suffered this season were on the road. The Swamp, difficult place to play. The Rose Bowl is not a difficult place to play, but Rice-Eccles Stadium is. And we've seen Kyle Whittingham rally his team in midseason in the past. And I think they're going to be a little borderline embarrassed by how poorly they played last week. They're going to be really up for this game. We've seen USC struggle on the road at Oregon State earlier this year. Utah is a better team than Oregon State. I hate the line of 3.5. I really wish it was 3 or 2.5, but I'm going to stick with Utah here for one more week and take the Utes to win and cover.
All right, 6 p.m. kickoff, Washington State versus Oregon State, and the Beavers are 3.5-point favorites. We all saw Washington State. They're coming off their loss 30-14 at USC. Another road game in Corvallis before their home matchup on a Thursday night in Pullman against the Utah Utes. I really hope Washington doesn't overlook Oregon State. I think Oregon State, there is a very well-coached team under Jonathan Smith. This is a very tough game to pick.
So you're saying Oregon State's favored by 3.5?
Yes.
Against Washington State, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Corvallis. Yes.
I really don't know which way this game is going to swing. I really don't. Washington State has a good defense. Defense travels well. But, man, Oregon State is such a well-coached team, and it's in Corvallis. So I'm rolling the dice here. I'm taking a shot in the dark because this is a coin flip game, but I'm going to go with Oregon State.
Yeah. I like Washington State to cover, but Oregon State to win. This strikes me as one of those last-second field goal or last-second two-point conversion kind of games. Has the bloom come off of Washington State a little bit lately? Absolutely. But this is still a really tough team. I'm not sure Oregon State has the offensive firepower to blow out anybody. They win sort of slugfests. And so I think this is going to be close. So give me the Cougars to cover, but the Beavers to win.
I'm going to take Washington State to win outright in this one. I know they lost by 2 touchdowns at USC, but they held USC to under 400 yards. They have a very good defense. There's been a lot of talk around Arizona this week about TFLs or lack thereof. For those who don't know, TFLs, that's tackles for losses on a given play. Washington State gets a ton of those. They play on the other side of the line of scrimmage defensively all the time. Like you said, Justin, defense travels. And Oregon State coming off that crazy, super emotional, wild ending against Stanford. Man, I don't know how that's going to affect them coming into this game. I don't love the quarterback play that they're getting, that last play notwithstanding. So I'm going to take the Cougs to win, and I will take those 3.5 points as well.
All right, one last game. Arizona versus UW. The Wildcats versus the Huskies in Seattle. And the final line for this game, or it could move, but as of Thursday morning, the line for this game is Washington minus 14. Michael Penix, high-powered offense. Hey, the Huskies, have they lost the last 2 games? And they lost last week to ASU in disappointing fashion. This is a tall order for Arizona. You're going up against a Washington team fresh off 2 losses. They're playing pissed off, and I still think that they're one of the top teams in the conference. So this is going to be a very big challenge for Arizona. I'm not sure they get it done on the road. We've seen some crazy things happen up in Seattle, like a football bounce off a guy's cleats and into the hands of a linebacker in return for a touchdown. Maybe some wacky things happen, but I think a lot of these wacky things play in favor of Washington. So I'm going to go with the Huskies to win, but I like Arizona to cover and lose by 10 points.
Remember a couple of weeks ago when we talked about how hard it is to win on the road in the Pac-12? Michael, of all the hard places in the Pac-12 to play, where's Washington? Top 2?
Definitely. It's probably top 2 with Oregon.
During playoff baseball, though?
I mean, you're flying the equivalent of like here to Washington, D.C. for starters, right? I mean, it's a long flight. It's weather sometimes. I don't know what the weather's supposed to be.
Beautiful. It'll be beautiful.
Okay. But it is different, right? And they love their Huskies up there. I mean, stadium will be loud.
Do you think any of the energy will be siphoned away from Husky Stadium because the Mariners are playing?
I don't know.
Baseball at the same time.
I don't know. Well, first of all, will there for sure be Mariners baseball that day?
We don't know. We don't know that.
Right,
yeah.
right. If the Mariners get swept,
hold
no
on.
game.
No, there will be. Yeah, because that's game 3.
Okay.
So there will definitely be a game there on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Now, no, it would be game 4 because Thursday is game 2.
Travel day Friday.
Oh, there's another travel day in there? Oh, jeez. Okay. Anyway, my point, Michael Lev, is that it's very hard to win in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Arizona has the defense to get it done. Give me the Huskies 38-21. So I like them covering, but just barely. So winning by 17.
So we've seen Arizona go up to the Pacific Northwest and just lay an egg like multiple times, right?
Pullman. This is why you hate Pullman.
I've seen this in person many times, especially in Pullman. I've seen it in Eugene. You've seen it in Corvallis as well. I feel like I haven't been to Washington in a long time. Not sure I've covered an Arizona-Washington game up there. I think I've been there since they remodeled the stadium. I'm really looking forward to this particular trip. I love the campus. I love Seattle. It is a great environment. I think there's just the makeup of this Arizona team is different. They're not going to, they're going to be in the right frame of mind that they need to be in for this trip. And I think they're going to be really competitive. Washington, their flaws have been revealed on defense. I mean, they have really struggled on that side of the ball. They have a very good offense. So I see a high-scoring game, shootout type game. What's the over-under?
73.
73, which I think might be the highest on the board in all of college football. I'm going to take Washington to win, but Arizona to keep it really close. I've got Huskies 41, Wildcats 38. So that would mean that the over hit. Now, speaking of over-unders, that game last week, I think it ended like 71 and a half, 72 right in there. And it was 49-22 with how much time left in the game? like 9 minutes left in the game and no one scored the rest of the way. Also, Arizona went for 2 and didn't make it, which would have made for another point or 2. So that could have been a bad beat for somebody out there.
62, get on your horse. All right.
Like, remember this year when Washington State threw a Hail Mary at the end of the Oregon game to cover? No, you weren't watching.
Wait, when?
Second to last play of their home game against Oregon. I'm sorry, Oregon threw Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Washington State threw a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was bad beat of the year there. Anyway, that's all.
Well, I had a 14-leg parlay 2 weeks ago, and it was Marshall losing in overtime didn't hit. But I think it was somebody won on like a Hail Mary pass.
Good Lord.
Yeah. It's
Appalachian State.
Appalachian State, that's
probably
what it is.
got. They're the only ones who win on Hail Marys.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Wildcast podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and comment the Wildcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And for all coverage of Arizona, UW, and Seattle, make sure you follow that guy, Michael Lev, on Twitter, and check out our work on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster app. Appreciate you for listening.